The Graveyard Encounter. A true story. It was a foggy autumn night in 1997 when my friend Jake convinced me to join him on a dare. Spend a night in the old Willowbrook Cemetery. Known to locals for its eerie history, the graveyard had seen its fair share of strange occurrences, but none of us really believed in ghosts. It was just a thrill-seeking adventure. We arrived just before midnight, armed with nothing but a flashlight, 2 sleeping bags, and a half-hearted confidence that this would be a boring night. The cemetery was silent, save for the occasional rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. The mist rolled thick over the headstones, shrouding them like forgotten spirits in the night. Jake picked out a spot near a large, crumbling mausoleum, one that had been abandoned for years. Rumor had it that the family buried inside had perished in a tragic fire, and their restless souls never left the grounds. I didn't put much stock in those stories. That is, until strange things started happening. Around 2 a.m., after hours of uneventful silence, Jake nudged me awake. His face was pale, his expression serious. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. I strained to listen, but at first all I heard was the wind. Then came a soft shuffling sound, like footsteps in the dirt. We were alone, or so we thought. The footsteps grew closer, crunching on the gravel pathway behind us. We both turned, flashing the light over the rows of gravestones, but there was no one there. Still, the sound persisted. We stood frozen, scanning the area, until the steps abruptly stopped just a few feet away. Suddenly, the air grew colder, and a thick, unnatural chill settled over us. That's when I saw it, a shadowy figure standing near the mausoleum. It was tall, cloaked in darkness, with no discernible face, just a void where its eyes should have been. I blinked, thinking it was a trick of the fog, but Jake saw it too. His hand gripped my arm tightly, his breath shallow. We didn't move. The figure remained still for what felt like an eternity, and then it slowly began to glide toward us, its movements unnervingly smooth, as if it wasn't touching the ground at all. My heart pounded as we backed away, stumbling over uneven stones, but it continued to approach, closer and closer. In a panic, Jake shined the flashlight directly on it, and that's when it disappeared, vanishing into the night like smoke. We bolted, running as fast as we could toward the cemetery gates, but the footsteps returned. Only this time, they weren't behind us. They were all around. The sound echoed, growing louder, like multiple pairs of feet closing in. Something or someone was following us. We made it to the gate, breathless and terrified. But before we could leave, a voice, low and raspy, whispered from the shadows, "You shouldn't have come." It wasn't Jake. It wasn't me. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. We didn't stick around to find out who or what had spoken. We raced out of the cemetery, not stopping until we were back in the safety of my car, hearts racing. Jake never spoke about that night again. But sometimes when I'm alone and the world is quiet, I think about that figure, about the footsteps, the whisper, and I wonder, just for a moment, if the dead really do walk among us in the shadows of old, forgotten graveyards.